Welcome to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast, where you get help and guidance through the chaos of parenting a child with anxiety or OCD. This show is for educational purposes and is not intended to replace the guidance of a qualified professional. Here's your host, child therapist, Natasha Daniels.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about shifting your perspective and your mindset when you're raising your child with OCD from fixer, which we all start from, most of us do, to being an anchor and what that means. We've been talking a lot on the podcast lately about you, and that's on purpose because the most powerful, influential thing you have going for you when we're talking about helping your child with OCD is you. And a lot of times we discount that and we focus externally on the problem and our child and the therapy and the medication and their motivation and their doing therapy homework, and all that is really important, but most of it's out of your control. But what is in your control is your mindset. We're going to dive into that, so stay tuned. Before we jump in, though, I do want to thank OCD for sponsoring this episode. OCD offers affordable, effective, convenient therapy, and they're available in the U.S. and outside the U.S. You can schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if OCD is a right fit for you and your child. Just go to treatmyocd.com. That is treatmyocd.com. I'll also leave a link in the show notes. And speaking of being an anchor, I am in the middle. It's not a coincidence, honestly. I'm in the middle of my anchor series. That might have something to do with this. The reason why this is the topic for today. I'm all about anchoring right now. And in my free series, I am talking about, actually today, the second of the 3 videos dropped. And I teach you my 3-step process of anchoring yourself. It's not rocket science, but it's just something that becomes a daily practice. And it's something that I do on a daily basis, or I should do on a daily basis, to anchor myself. And that's what the series is all about. It's talking about the smudges on your lens that impact your ability to be stabilized and to be an anchor for your child. If you don't recognize what the barrier is to you showing up in a neutral setting, and I mean like our own internal setting, right? We have the trigger setting, the anger setting, the I'm overwhelmed setting, the I can't do this setting. And what about the neutral setting? If I'm here, I'm adding nothing to the noise of the situation. I'm asking myself, what do you need in this moment? That's so hard. And I'm walking you through how to do that step by step, and it's free. So register for the series at atparentingsurvivalseries.com. It's 3 on-demand videos, and then I do 3 bonus live classes, and it's all on the series website. We do have a temporary series Facebook group if you want extra connection and extra support during the series. So jump in, because at any time that the series is running, you can watch these 3 videos as they get released. And the second one was released today, so you can catch up and watch the first 2. They're only a half hour each, but they're jam-packed with guidance and support. So I hope that you check it out, atparentingsurvivalseries.com. All right, let's dive into today's topic, which is one that I am practicing on a daily basis, and that is moving from fixer to anchor. So what does that even mean? When we're a fixer, for some of us, we own the struggle 110%. It's like their anxiety is our anxiety, their OCD is our OCD, their struggles are our struggles, and their progress is our progress. There's no separation. And that's really, really hard to put that extra little space in there, but so important and critical. When we're a fixer, we want this all to go away. We want it all to go away fast. And so we are trying to fix their OCD with the level of intensity that often backfires with our kids. We talked about this last week when we were talking. We've actually talked for the last few episodes around this topic. And last week we talked about when you're more motivated than your child to work on OCD. And this is a really good part too, in some ways, because in that episode, which was episode 432, if you want to go back and listen to it after this one, we're talking about how we can kind of shut down our kids when we're over motivated and they're under motivated, and how that seesaw of our energy versus their energy can often impact long-term progress and slow them down. And I want to piggyback on that topic today and talk about how to shift from that fixing mentality to an anchor mentality. And when I say anchor mentality, that anchor mentality is, I am here to anchor you. I am the calm in the storm. I am this grounding presence. It was interesting. I was talking to my 21-year-old today. I was driving her. She's back from college and she's in her senior year of college. Can you believe that? And she's still struggling with like POTS and dysautonomia. And I feel like we're missing something. So I'm driving her to a naturopath that I found who's fantastic, just to be really thorough and let's get a full assessment. So we have this drive together, and somehow we started talking about my husband that passed away. I don't know why that sounded so weird. My husband, the husband. And I think I was stumbling on that because that was not her birth dad. That was her stepdad. And it was the dad of my other two kids. Maybe you didn't know that. And for those of you that are newer, he passed away back in 2021, like February of 2021. So it's been 4.5 years. But it was interesting because we were talking about him. He's come up a lot lately for some reason. And I was asking her, because she was the oldest when he passed away, and my two younger ones are like, I don't have a lot of memories, which is so sad to me. But she was 17 at the time, I think, something like that. And she said, all I really remember the most about him is that he was the calm in the house. I thought it was really interesting. She said, whenever he was around, or like him being part of our life, just made you feel like nothing bad can happen. Like he was just calmness, and he made you feel safe psychologically and physically. That's what she said. And it's so true. He did. He had just this presence about him. I think that was what was so unnerving when he passed away, besides all the other things, was that he was like this anchor in our house. He just was this solid. You just felt like everything was going to be okay when he was around. No matter the sky could be falling and he'd be like, skies fall, we'll build another one. Like that was his attitude, which I try to emulate. And then I asked her, and I probably shouldn't have, I said, do I feel like an anchor? Do I feel like calm? And the answer was not great. She was like, well, not like him. And I share this with you. And we've had some tumultuous times since then, just as of late as well, with just different things happening in our lives, and me being stressed, and then trying to anchor, and me being stressed, and then mental health issues with my son and my other daughter. And it's been a lot. And it's hard to be the anchor that my husband was. Like he was just a rock, a boulder. And none of us are going to necessarily be a rock or a boulder in a positive way and be that solid of an anchor. I mean, some of it is just your temperament. Nothing could really rock him. I mean, he was an FBI agent, and so he came by this naturally. But it's a goal of mine, and it's something I want to teach you too, to show up every day trying to be the best anchor that I can be. It's not going to be the anchor that somebody else is, but I want to be the best anchor that I can be. And what that means is, can I show up to life's twists and turns and my child's stress and their OCD and their compulsions and their meltdowns and their refusals and their getting stuck and their struggles, can I respond to that in a way that I provide them an anchor, that I feel safe and stable and I don't add my own stuff in the mix? That's hard. I almost want to say impossible, but it's not. It's not impossible, but it is a daily practice. And that is the gift that we can give our kids far more than anything else that we spin our wheels with, really trying to hyperfixate on when they're doing compulsions or really trying to nag them and make sure they always do all the things that the therapist is telling them to do, or pulling back our enabling of OCD in one fell swoop. Like, all of those things can be done out of panic and fear, and the energy that goes into a fixer mentality can be overwhelming for our kids. And one of the best gifts we can give our kids is just being that solid anchor, and even just fine-tuning that, even if your child is unable or unwilling to work on their anxiety or OCD right now, which is what we talked about last episode. We can still give them the gift of being an anchor. And that's hard because our own emotions get in the mix. Sometimes we feel like we're not doing enough. And sometimes we feel like it's giving up. So let's unpack some of that. We can't do more than what our kids want us to do. And I have really started to realize that in my own journey with my kids with anxiety and OCD, is that sometimes my energy and what I want and what I want them to do, or who I want them to become, or how quickly I want their mental health issues to improve, is not at the pace that they want. And so when we talked about this last episode, me cheerleading in a vicious, aggressive sort of way can actually backfire and shut them down. And sometimes and I talked about this last episode, sometimes we have to stop our walking ahead of them and slow down and wait for them to catch up. And I've really shifted my mindset that this is their journey. It's not my journey. Like, my child was diagnosed with these struggles. My child is dealing with these struggles. I'm not. And they are going to go on and have their own life, hopefully. And that journey will continue without me. And my job, and I talked a lot about that last episode, so I'm going to focus on us. My job is to offer them the gift of being an anchor. And that is hard. What does it mean to be an anchor? Well, when I'm an anchor, I am showing up with intention. And so I'm asking myself in that moment, am I fully here? And this can happen in a split second. It's going to sound long, but it can happen in a split second. Am I here? Or am I half somewhere else because I'm really stressed about something else that's just happened, or something that's happening in my world? Or am I stressed about the what ifs of what's happening in front of me, or the what was in front of me? Sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm staring at my child's struggle, and I'm not only seeing their struggle currently, I'm seeing, actually, this just happened this morning. So I could even just go into that. And I can give you an example when I was not an anchor. That happened this morning too. I almost feel hypocritical doing an episode on how to be an anchor today because I was not an anchor. But I think it's really important to stress the fact that this is a daily practice. And I often tell the parents in the AT parenting community, if you are able to be an anchor even 20 or 30% of the time, you are knocking it out of the park. And one thing is, I have to remember that goes for me too. And that means 70% of the time I'm going to be unanchored and I'm doing well. Think about that. Because it's hard to be anchored. It's not a natural thing to show up, not have any of your own junk clouding your lens. You're fully present for your child's struggles. You are in a neutral setting. And I mean your personal setting, right? And you are able able, I don't know why I said that weird, to ask yourself, what does my child need in this moment? And you're able to provide it for them. Not what they want, what they need. And that's hard when smudges on your lens get in the way. So back to this morning. Today was the first day of school for my son who does online schooling. And he's a sophomore now in high school. And there was a lot of anxiety, anticipatory anxiety coming into it because I have taken a pause over the summer. I've completely shut down the fixer in me. I have decided I was going to give him a break and me a break. And I wasn't going to be hypervigilant in watching what he eats. I wasn't going to be hypervigilant in watching his sleep patterns. I wasn't going to be hypervigilant in anything because I needed a mental break. I was so burnt out. I just did an episode on burnout a couple of episodes ago, episode 430, When Helping Hurts, Navigating Burnout and OCD Parenting. Just did one. I've been doing a lot of these type of themes because it's something that we all struggle with. And putting a pause was not it was not keeping him unsafe, right? So it was still making sure that he ate at least one meal a day. It was still setting the Wi-Fi system up so that it automatically shut off. I just wasn't looking for if he had hacked the system, if he had outsmarted me that day. I let that go. And so there were still boundaries in place. So when I say pause, I just want to, put a little definition in there. I'm not saying totally let things go, but I was like, I'm going to keep status quo for a little while because I was over nagging. I was 24/7 nagging. And especially if you are homeschooling or you have a child who does online schooling or you have a young adult at home, you're home with them 24/7 and you're monitoring so much, especially if you're doing homeschooling or online schooling, you're monitoring their schooling as well. It never ends. And so that can really impact the relationship. I paused for me, but it improved our relationship because I actually even said to him this morning when I became unanchored, which I'll share that part too, don't worry. I premised everything with, I let you be this summer. This is kind of what I was saying. I was like, I didn't micromanage anything this summer. I just wanted you to get a break from me always telling you what to do, what to eat, right? He's got ARFID, so restrictive eating, and me like micromanaging what you eat and everything. And he said, and I really appreciated that, Mom. I really appreciated that. Thank you. And I realized in that moment, that pause wasn't just for me. That pause was for us. I did it for me, but it turned out to be for us. And some of our kids do need that pause. That doesn't mean we let everything go. We keep things safe, but it felt kind of nice to pause for a little while and just be like, what's on my plate is less than what it normally is. And it was really nice for him. Now, eventually you have to unpause. And that was today. I had to unpause. School's starting. And that is kind of what I said before I unanchored. is I said, I gave you all summer. I wanted to give you space. I wanted to give you a reprieve. Really, I wanted to give myself a reprieve, to be honest with you. And now I've got to pick it back up again. And so I've got to make sure that you eat. I've got to make sure that you're sleeping because I'm not going to let you fail out of high school. Now, he gets straight A's, so that hasn't happened. He's incredibly smart, but I just needed him to know that the pause button was getting unpaused. And I was communicating that, which can be helpful when you are pausing and then you're unpausing. But he wouldn't get up and he wouldn't get up and he wouldn't get up. And in that moment, I don't know if that conversation happened before or after this, but in that moment, on my lens, and this is what I talk about in the Anchor series, that's free, that you can join. On my lens was not just my child sleeping and not waking up to go and start school, but on my lens was my anger of, I have to do this again. I have come off of this pause and I'm feeling refreshed, and I'm feeling resentful that at this age I have to babysit. And I use that word a lot with him, and I hate that I use that word. I'll always be like, I'm not babysitting this. And it's a language I don't want to keep using, but it comes out of my mouth when I'm not being intentional. But 30% of the time I'm intentional, and that's the goal. So doing good there. But I'll say things like, so what was on my lens were those thoughts of, I don't want to go back into this. And every year you should be improving. And why am I back in this on the first day of school, that I'm waking you up and I have to come back up and I have to come back up and I have to come back up? And so the anger was bubbling. So that was on my lens. So I wasn't just seeing him. I was seeing resentment and me being robbed of my freedom and my time and my energy. And I'm depleted right now because of things that are going on in my life that I can't control, that are stupid, that are adding to my stress. And so that was one smudge. The next smudge that was on there was not a 15-year-old laying in bed, but a 30-year-old lying in bed. This is never going to change. He won't be able to get up for work. He won't be able to get up to get a job or to go to his job. I saw the future. I wasn't seeing just a boy on his first day of school, tired because he slept, he didn't go to bed on time, and he's getting back into a routine that's hard for him, and who's on medication that makes him tired too. I didn't see that because it was clouded by my irritability, my resentment, my future what ifs and fears. And then because I was unanchored and I didn't tune in and re-anchor myself, which is what I teach in the anchor series, I exploded because I didn't give any pause. I didn't do any scanning of myself. And in that moment, I could feel that I was getting angry. And there was a little whisper of, I think you're about to get out of control. But I ignored the whisper. And I was just like, I think that's when I went into the pause thing. No, I think that was afterwards. I think I screamed, we're not doing this again. I was like, you're 1 year olds, or we're not going. And so I screamed. And then I do this sometimes. I feel so angry. I just slam the door, and it feels so good in that moment to just slam it as hard as I can. And then as soon as I do it, I go, oh my gosh, that was like a child. That was like the most unanchored thing I could have done. Like, who wants to wake up to that? Like their mom getting angry and slamming the door. Now, granted, that was the third or fourth time I had been up there trying to wake him up. So some self-compassion, but that's not how I want to show up. That's not being an anchor. There's an example of what not to do. We had a great rest of our day. He got up, and ironically, I think it like kind of popped him. There was an awareness, and then we did have a good conversation. I actually think that was where the pause button conversation came in. And then later today, I did some correcting, and I said, I'm sorry, I slammed the door, because he shut the door, and he thought he said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shut it loudly, and he hadn't. It was normal. And that kind of reminded me that I was an idiot this morning. That's not self-compassionate. I was out of control. And so I said, I'm sorry that I slammed the door this morning. That wasn't okay. And he's like, no, I understand that you were upset. And I was like, no, I shouldn't have slammed the door. That wasn't okay. It's always good to go back and heal and discuss things afterwards. It's modeling some humbleness and some awareness, but it still doesn't make it any better. But then we talked about how I am not going to do all these things for him because I love him and I want him to develop these independent skills. And I was like, if I keep showing up at the level that I showed up last year and the level I showed up the year before, you're never going to get independence, and you're never going to be able to, you're not evolving into what will be a young adult. And that's why I want to see some more independence this school year. Now, for some of you, that may not land well with your kids if you were dealing with something similar. But today we had a good day. Like, he took it and he was like logged onto his class and he was doing his work, and he worked for 5 hours, maybe 6 hours, actually even longer, because I just got back and he was still working. And then he's like, I'm going to go take a shower. Well, that's something I normally have to nag him about too. And then later he's like, I'm going to fold up my laundry. Like something clicked today. Will it be there tomorrow? Maybe, maybe not. But the idea is not to swoop in and fix. The idea, ideally, is to give them the tools to help themselves and to be the anchor supporting them along the way. And you're going to get unanchored. I don't know anybody who doesn't get unanchored. It happens. And being able to recoup from that as well and not stew in that, because that can kind of perpetuate your unanchoredness, is important. I mean, I've learned to kind of just be like, oh, that was a bad minute, and now I'm moving on. I feel bad, and I'm like, oh, just ruined our trust and our communication again. And now he's like, oh, there's my mom, totally out of control. But I have to move on, because what's done is done. It doesn't help me to get stuck in a rut and feel all this shame and guilt and be immobilized by it. The ultimate goal and intention is to foster independence. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we're going to take a quick break. And then when we get back, I want to talk about shifting to supporting themselves and anchoring through that. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's time we put help directly in our kids' hands. Introducing Crushing OCD course for kids and teens.
It was way more helpful than all the other therapy we've ever done because we didn't really know what to do. So we weren't really doing it before. So the course helped to figure out what the exposures are and how to do them.
We're not in therapy and find it really hard to find an ERP trained therapist here. So we're currently with like the public health service, but again, they don't seem to be trained in ERP. It's filled that gap that we don't have that was desperately needed.
This was really well timed for us to use between therapists and to help us get off to a good start with this new practice.
It was easy to use. I was able to do it from my phone or also on the computer.
There's different ages, so there were younger kids, there were teenagers, and so that was really nice too, to have a variety of ages where it wasn't just geared towards younger kids or older kids. It was a nice variety.
It's helpful for our kids to hear it from this third party as opposed to just us saying it.
I really like the offense and defense method. I love working on poking at OCD while it's sleeping. It makes it a little bit easier to do, and it's kind of fun. I'm planning on using it to work on my fear of holding or touching batteries and stuff like that.
So it was really helpful, and I think a lot of other kids would like it. I thought that I was the only one who had worrying about the weather and stuff. And then there was somebody else on there who worried about the same thing, which was really helpful.
Seems less scary to work on stuff now that I've watched this class, and I'm more interested to work on it.
I like trying to do more exposures still, and before I wasn't, I just didn't want to do them.
I've worked on some of my bigger compulsions and been successful.
I realized that it was helpful to do the exposures. Before it was really, really hard. It's still hard, but it's helpful to know that I need to do them.
Before there would be a lot of battles about it. So it is definitely less loggerheads.
Really, really good course and super helpful.
Definitely would recommend this. It's really easy to follow. It's nice bite-sized videos. I really like the worksheets that go along with it, and I think it's really helpful.
To learn more about this course and register your child or teen, go to atparentingsurvivalschool.com.
Welcome back. All right, so before the break, we talked a lot about my mistakes. And we talked about the importance of anchoring and moving from fixer to anchorer. The importance of pause sometimes is really important. And then the shift of being an anchor while they're struggling and letting our kids fix or figure out what they need to do. So often when we're a fixer, we swoop in and we micromanage. And that's kind of the battle that's going on in my house right now, is that micromanaging of having a child who has ARFID, which is restrictive eating, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, who has executive functioning issues and ADHD, who is online schooling, and it's so we've got dysregulation with mood, with sleep, eating a big issue, and then doing schoolwork, and wanting to help them with their mental health, but also realizing that if you And your list is probably different. Maybe some of you have a very similar list, but some of you might have a very different list. It might be micromanaging the shampoo and the soap and the paper towels and the wipes, or the hot water, the amount of time they're in the shower, or maybe hyper fixating on how often they wash their hands, or how often they do compulsions, or getting stuck in OCD loops all day long with them. A lot of us get stuck in the yuck, that should be a saying. We do get stuck in the yuck, and we wind up overstepping and overfixing. And so for me, what that looks like is writing everything on the board for my son and waking him up multiple times, really managing everything. And when we do that, and think about what do you manage in your kid's life right now? And each child's different. I've got 2 other kids that I don't overmanage, because sometimes their struggles will dictate how much you manage, because you don't want them to struggle, or they need it. And that's the other thing. The balance of what do they need me to do? Because if I don't do it, it will get dangerous. Maybe they will not eat, or maybe they will get stuck in a shower for 10 hours, or versus what can I let them figure out themselves? And that seesaw is really hard to navigate because it changes all the time. And so giving our kids the space to fix things themselves, letting them fail a little bit before you swoop in, and being that anchor when they get dysregulated, they get overwhelmed because they're doing it themselves, or you're not enabling the OCD, and they get angry for that as well because you're not fixing it by giving them the compulsion or the answer that they want. That's the gift we can give our kids. And that is a really hard thing to do. But I often ask myself, what does my child need from me in this moment? And more often than not, they don't need me to micromanage. They don't need me to remind them that they need to eat, because they already know that. They don't need me to remind them that they need to stop picking. My daughter, she already knows that. Often they need me to be present for them and to be an anchor. And as they get older, and I'm noticing this shift, as they get older, they don't want that as much. And it falls on deaf ears, and it ruins the relationship. And so asking our kids, and maybe literally asking your child, how can I support you? It's something I've been asking my kids a lot lately. What can I do to support you? That moves you from fix mode to support mode, because you're the support. You are not the driver. And I say that a lot. I say in my survival series, I say you are in the passenger seat. You are not in the driver's seat. You are the coach. You're not the player. You don't just jump on the field, grab the soccer ball, and score for the team. That won't count, because your child is the one that has to kick the ball in the goal. You get to stay on the sidelines and cheer them on. And when you have that kind of picture in your head, that can help. Are you doing it for them, or are you coaching them through it? And there is a huge difference. When you're coaching them through it, you're going to get a more dysregulated kid. You are going to get more meltdowns. You're going to get some more failures. They might get worse before they get better. You might become the target of their anger. And so learning to be a solid anchor as you coach is better than just being a fixer. Because when you're a fixer, you don't have to deal with that as much because you're doing everything for them. So you don't really need to anchor because you're fixing. And you're robbing your child inadvertently of the opportunity to learn how to be a fixer themselves. And that's hard. And so instead of saying something like, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or when you're feeling panicky, you need to do X, Y, and Z. When they're panicky, you say, what helps you the most during these times? We don't want to be the panacea for their distress, because when you are the panacea, you are the antidote to their stress or to their anxiety. They often develop secondary separation anxiety, because they're like, I need my mom to be right next to me because she's the one that makes me feel better, or she's the one that does stuff when I'm not okay. She's the one that tells me what to do, and I don't have faith in myself. And we're robbing them of the ability to, one, problem solve, develop self-regulation, and the ability to trust themselves that they're able to help themselves. That's actually kind of something that happened to me when my husband passed away. Was inadvertently, he kind of robbed me in a loving way of being able to calm myself down. He was the rock for the whole family. And I know I started off this episode saying he was the anchor, but he also was the fixer. I guess you can be both. And without him telling me everything was going to be all right, he also took over control. And so he made everything all right because he kind of took over like a fixer. It's weird how this is all coming together. So when he died, I was completely derailed, not only because obviously it's so hard when you lose your husband, but I didn't have somebody who fixed things for me. I had to do everything myself. And I was a fiercely independent woman before I met him. But after 12 years of marriage with somebody who liked to fix and liked to be the anchor and liked to take care of everybody, you eventually just give them the reins and say, okay, you're the one that's going to take care of me. You're the one that's going to take care of all of us. You're the one that's going to do it. And how often does that happen in your family where you as the parent take the reins for your child and they see it the same way? And once those reins are back to them, it's overwhelmed because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. And in a perfect world, those reins are going to be given back to them as they get older. And hopefully, certainly, if they go to college or if they move out of your house, which is for most of us the ultimate goal of success, is I've raised a functioning adult with my 21-year-old who's got her own apartment and she's in another state. I look at her and I think, I've cooked a complete adult. It never ends, though. I mean, obviously, any one of you who knows, who has any kids outside of the house, it doesn't end. They still need you as that parent. But it feels good to be like, that one's hatched. You know, they're fully out of the house. They're fully functional. She can drive. She can make her own doctor's appointments. She can pay her own bills. She's in her own apartment. That's as independent as you can get. And I want my other two to be like that. And they are differently wired. You know, they're not her. They're all uniquely different. And we treat each one of if you have multiple kids, you treat each kid differently depending on their struggles and their diagnoses and their issues and their personality. And so that can get a little overwhelming, and wanting to make sure that you teach your kids how to do things for themselves, including how to handle their OCD, is important. Because if you're the one that's always micromanaging it, reminding them of their doctor's appointments, reminding them of their OCD homework, reminding them not to do their compulsions, they're never going to pick it up themselves. And if they're not motivated, listen to this episode that we just did, because we talk about what do you do with that. But the one thing that you can do, no matter what, is show up in a solid way and become that anchor and leave your emotions at the door, which is what I should have done this morning. But I had gotten a series of emails from attorneys and all this legal stuff I'm having to deal with that's nonsense and a waste of my time and so expensive. And so I already had a rough morning, and then he wouldn't wake up. And that was another smudge that I didn't mention that was on my lens that we talk about in the Anchor series. It's like those smudges don't even have to be related to them. They could be things that are going on in your life that are really blocking your view in that moment, because life is so messy and we all have lots of things going on other than just what's happening right in front of us. So I hope that you'll join me in the Anchor series. It is a phenomenal series, and I'm not just saying it because it's mine. If it wasn't mine, I would take it because I need it. I need the daily reminder. And in fact, I'm recording this before I've actually started the Anchor series because I batched these ahead of time. And I know when I'm doing the Anchor series, I'm a better parent. For real. Isn't that weird? Because I'm being reminded of it. I'm talking to parents about it. I do 3 live bonus classes about it. And so I'm really in it. And that brings up my awareness, and I become a much better parent when I'm doing that series because I'm so attuned. And I've heard from other parents that say the same thing, that when they take this series or they take one of my series, it just brings their awareness and it really helps that daily practice. It kind of kickstarts that daily practice. So let me help you kickstart that daily practice of being an anchor. I'm not telling you about all the great times when I'm knocking it out of the park. I wind up telling you the times where I don't, because I want you to know that it's okay to fail, but I am doing good most of the time. 30% of the time, I'm knocking it out of the park, but I don't share those with you. So I hope that you are finding the podcast in general helpful. Join us at the Anchor Series. I forgot to tell you the link, atparentingsurvivalseries.com. You can join for free and you'll get an email from me and you can check out the series website. The first 2 videos are up on the series website. If you're listening to this on a Tuesday, they should all be up. And then the 2 live classes, the first bonus class is already done. You can watch the replay of that one. And then the next bonus class will be on Friday. So if you're listening to this in real time, I know some people listen to this like 5 years later. So I may still be doing the Anchor Series. I don't know. But you can check that out. I'll tell you the dates. So the next bonus live class will be August 29th, which is my birthday. So it'll be a birthday live class. So there you go. I do hope that you are enjoying the podcast. I'll go back to that. I did have an AT Parenting community member let me know that people are leaving comments on Spotify. I did not know that. Spotify does not notify me when you guys leave comments. And you leave them on specific episodes. So I really wouldn't know that you're leaving a comment unless I go and look for it. So I do apologize for anyone who has ever left a comment on Spotify that I never replied. I did go back and I tried to reply to some of them, but I didn't go deep. And so if you've ever left a comment, thank you. I'm going to start checking on those so that I can let people know that I appreciate it. So I do want to thank Elsa Bell, who wrote about my last episode, which was why kids with OCD say I don't know to everything. It's the last one currently because I told you I'm recording this in the past. And so that was the most recent episode I had, was why kids with OCD say I don't know to everything and what you can do about it. So if you're dealing with that, check out that episode. And Elsa liked it, said this was excellent. And Jesslyn wrote, I cannot stress enough how much I needed this episode. This has been a struggle in our household. Thank you for the tools in navigating this, as well as making it clear that this is common in OCD and that we're not alone in it. I am happy to do that. So thank you for leaving those comments. And if you leave a comment, I promise I'll be reading yours next time as well. I do hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do, and I'll talk to you again next time. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. To get additional support raising a child with anxiety or OCD, visit Natasha's online school of on-demand classes at atparentingsurvivalschool.com.